Yeah, so what is being changed is only the procedural aspects of assessment. How does the assessment will be, how the assessment will be taken care going forward. So we are going from the physical mode to the digital mode. That is the only change. And let me tell you, I have been hearing from few that this is a sudden change, just like a demonetization, that suddenly the prime minister comes on 13th of August and announces that now we are going digital and we'll be having faceless assessment. That is not the case. In fact, right from 2015, the foundation had been laid for the assessments being online and the notices being received through emails, etc. So as far as the announcement is concerned, it was done way back. In fact, in 2018 budget also, it was announced that we'll be having a faceless assessment. So this is not something a surprise or a shock that is coming to the assessees. This was something which was already on the cards, and now we see the light in terms of the, and most of us are currently facing the lockdown while things have opened up, but many offices are, we are still operating from home because of the lack of public transport and still the number of cases increasing across Mumbai and Maharashtra. So there can be no better time for us to introduce the faceless assessment scheme, and here we are having the faceless assessment scheme. And one thing to remember is that the law remains the same, only the procedure changes. So no need to worry about this is a drastic change or this is a sea change. Nothing changes as far as the income tax law is concerned. It is just that the hearings or the submissions are now going to be in the digital mode, and there will be no physical visit or very few physical visit to the income tax department. With that backdrop, I think we can move on to the next slides. As I said that the government of India has been taking the entire governance on an e-platform, that is on a digital mode. We see Aadhaar card being coming into picture, and now even Aadhaar card facilities or the changes to Aadhaar card are also can also be done online. We see MCA, that is the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, ROC, has already done online, and now the incorporation is done in hardly a week or so. So that is the swift mode that we see as far as the digitization of the Indian the operations or functions of the Indian government, as far as the governance as well as other compliance is concerned. IRCTC, one of the biggest railway network of India, or in fact, we can say across the globe, we are one of the largest railway infrastructure and the largest network of the railways. We have IRCTC, that is the ticket booking going online. We can also now book the food online for the train travel, etc. DigiLocker is, again, you can have various documents, the government documents like driving license, passport, etc., and even your RC book, etc., on the DigiLocker. That is again the e form of the documents as far as the various regulatory or statutory documents are concerned. GST network, we all see since 2017, GST has gone online, and we have the returns and all GST compliance is being done online. NPCI, that is National Payments Corporation, then Startup India, Passport is also online. We can book appointments for passport, etc., online. Income Tax Department, the submissions, etc., return filing, everything is online. Swift, that is for the trading platform for the stock market, is also online. E-Vahan, that is the, I would say, RTO. The entire RTO facility is online. As soon as you get the registration of your car or two wheeler, you can immediately download the RC online. That is the registration card online. While it takes 45 to 60 days for the physical copy to come to your home through normal post, but you can very well download that and save it in your DigiLocker as soon as the RC is allotted, which is also considered to be a valid document. National Voter Service Portal also is also effectively this slide is just talking about various online initiatives which we are going through in our day-to-day practices, where the seniors in the profession will be aware that for a simple ROC work, there used to be multiple visits to the ROC, multiple visits to the government department for getting registrations done, for getting documents registered, etc. So same thing was with income tax. There were, if the seniors are aware, old days, the registration or rather the income tax return filing was physical, and we used to go to the income tax department to get stamp of application or filing of the income tax return. So now we have everything going digital. Most of the things are online, and you can do it at the click of a button, sitting at home or in your office, wherever you are. So, taking the same digital movement forward, we have income tax also the litigation in the online mode, that is the digital mode. So, what I have tried to do is I have tried to build the litigation landscape into the four pillars. The first pillar is basically Project Insight, that is done. Pillar two is data exchange, that is interdepartment MOU. Now you are aware, or you might have heard in the news that income tax department is entering into MOUs with various other government agencies like FTA, ROC, or rather ROC, RBI, the FEMA authority, Enforcement Directorate, etc. Not just locally, but also globally. We are entering into MOUs with various countries for exchange of information, Switzerland or be it any other jurisdiction, for getting information on the data of various transactions, etc. Then pillar three, which will be the focus for today's discussion, that is on e-assessment. E-assessment is now, I think, a reality in today's world, and the assessments now will be faceless and anonymous. That is, the taxpayer will not know who the assessing officer is. The assessing officer also will not know the exact identity of the taxpayer. And we will discuss more about this pillar three in detail. And last but not the least, we are also going online. That is for the work, the appellate procedure. Can we mute? I think I can have background noise from some participants. Yeah, thank you. So even the virtual, I would say, courts are going virtual or digital. The Supreme Court hearings, High Court hearings, tribunals, CIT appeal, and DRP all have started digital hearings, online hearings. So this is where we are moving to. The entire litigation landscape is also going digital. So pillar one, just to give you a brief background of what pillar one, that is Project Insight, is all about. So the government or the income tax department is scanning the online platforms, that is the social media platforms, be it LinkedIn profile, be it Facebook, be it Instagram, whatever. So they are keeping a track on various Facebook, Instagrams, and other social media platforms and various search engines where people post their photographs, their personal achievements, professional achievements, etc. And effectively they try to map that with their income and the taxes they pay. Also, income mapping via business value chain, that is GST reporting. You will be filing the GST returns for your clients or for your corporate. So the GST data is also being directly being shared by the GST department with the income tax, so that the tracking can be done that what is being reported in GST, whether the same amount is reported as income in the in the return of income as well. Audit trail for high value transactions. Now, if you undertake any real estate transaction, that is purchase of property, etc., beyond 50 lakhs, immediately the registrar has to report that by way of SFT, that is specific financial transaction. and that is the statement of financial transactions, be it real estate, be it luxury car. So assuming if you buy a car worth 10 lakhs or more, the same data is also provided to the income tax department. And now that on purchase of car there is also a TCS, so there will be a reporting on that front as well for purchase of cars as well as real estate transactions. uh, Credit card transactions and international vacations also, if you see recently, the income tax return forms have also been changed to include your foreign stays or foreign visit in your income tax return. So that also gives an idea to the income tax department that if you can afford a foreign travel, then what is the amount of taxes that you are paying, whether it is up to the mark, etc. So effectively they are trying to map all the high end transactions and monitor it with respect to the taxes that we are paying uh, under the income tax law. Also, if you see, the non-filers are getting immediately reminders for non-filing of income tax returns, unlike earlier that nobody used to receive notice, or the notice used to be received only after 1 year, 2 year. Now you have the notices being received online, that is through emails, immediately as soon as the due date passes or even before the due date approaches. The reminders are being sent by the income tax department to all the taxpayers. Risk-based assessment, redefining parameters and data driven. So now they are more focusing on the key assessments or the big ticket items rather than chasing the small items, which we'll discuss subsequently as well. Then moving on to the pillar 2, that is data exchange. As I said, income tax department has entered into an MOU with various government and non-government agencies, be it MCA, SEBI, the CBIC, that is the GST department, MSME, that is micro and small and medium enterprises ministry, banks, mutual fund houses, Aadhaar, exchange with overseas, that is, as I said, the exchange of information agreements with various other countries are also entered into. And very recently, as you might be aware, form number 26AS has also been modified. So earlier, what we used to get in form number 26AS is only the summary of TDS and the advance tax and self-assessment taxes paid. Uh, but now you have various other transactions like stock trades, real estate, credit card transactions, and SFT reporting. Everything will be reported in your form number 26AS and not just your taxes paid. So effectively, the data capturing is being enlarged by virtue of this data exchange, and technology will act as a catalyst to facilitate the data driven and focused risk assessment. They will be focusing more on the risk assessment rather than chasing the small item, or effectively the focus will be only on the big ticket items. So these are the few, I would say, newspaper cutouts which I have kept for ready reference of the members, wherein the data exchange has been reported in various newspapers. I have also given the sources. This is just for ready reference. It goes right from the surveillance plan to the Swiss bank account for black money, uh, the big data. So the department is now been using big data, etc. Now, one thing here which is important here is that the government of India is going digital big time, and it is we, the assessees, or we, the, I would say, that the consultants who now need to catch up with the government for various e-filings and also this faceless assessment for that matter. So now coming to the subject proper of digitization of income tax department, that is the e-assessment, etc. The journey started somewhere in 2015 October, where email-based assessment was started or announced, and basically the notices were issued on emails, while physical copies still continued. The email notices started in October 2015, and the e-proceedings started somewhere in September 2017. While the assessment was on physical mode, more on physical mode, the department also asked in selected cases on a pilot mode to upload the submissions online on the income tax portal. And in the 2018 budget, the e-assessment was announced, that is the faceless assessment was announced. And the scheme for e-assessment, that is faceless assessment, was declared somewhere in September 2019. And in October 2019, all the notices and all the documents that were issued from the income tax department were mandatorily required to mention DIN, that is document identification number. Any document without DIN will be considered to be void and illegal. Last but not the least, on 13th of August, we have the e-assessment renamed to faceless assessment. And also on the same date, the Honorable Prime Minister also announced the Taxpayers Charter. And we will shortly have the e-appeals being announced, which will go live on 25th of September. We await the scheme for e-appeals. But as mentioned by the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister, e-appeals also is going to be a reality soon. That is not only soon, I would say 2 weeks from today, we will have the e-appeals also going live 25th of September to 2020. So transparent taxpayer platform has been launched. So along with the taxpayer charter, I'll cover taxpayer charters towards the end also. The purpose is basically to overcome the physical meetings and the physical connections with the tax authorities and go digital, and also have a seamless platform for or painless and faceless tax system. Now, whether it will be a success or no, only time will tell. But that is the whole objective. The objective is minimum government and maximum governance, as has been projected since years. Not sure whether we will see the light as early as a year or so. Assessments only under faceless regime, so there is not going to be any physical visits to the income tax department, or very few physical visits to the income tax department. For assessment, you will not be required to visit tax department. For any other matters like rectification, refund, etc., you may be, or tedious matters, you may be visiting tax office. But for assessments, no longer going to tax office. Even for appeal, for that matter, you will not be required to go to the income tax department. Central, circular, and international tax cases are being carved out. They will continue under the physical mode. Almost 53% of the manpower of the income tax department, 53% of the manpower of the income tax department has been diverted to the faceless assessment wing. So almost, or not even almost, more than half of the staff of income tax is now diverted to the faceless scheme. So you can see the importance of the faceless assessment to the income tax department as well. Residuary jurisdiction, that is our jurisdictional officer will continue to be there for the post assessment activities like demand, refund, etc. We will come to the specifics of what are the responsibilities of the jurisdictional officer going forward. Data analytics and artificial intelligence back security, as I said, everything is going to be online. Even selection of case is going to be online without human intervention by the use of data analytics and artificial intelligence. The number of cases have been reduced from 0.94% to 0.26% over the last 6 years. So even the government or the income tax department is trying to reduce the number of scrutiny cases and thereby reduce litigation. While that is the purpose, the actual reality might be different for the assessees going forward. Now, coming to the digitization of tax functions, you might have seen your income tax assessment orders and also the computations. Initially, they used to come in the physical mode. That is, the computations were punched in. It was a standard ITNS form, and the numbers were punched in manually. Now you have everything prepared digitally under the ITBA, that is Income Tax Business Application, which covers all the core processes, be it registration, e-filing, e-proceedings, e-payment, e-nivaran, e-sayog, e-submissions of responses to outstanding, even rectification. The rectification is going online now. That is, the rectification under section 54 has to be filed online. So as I said, gone are the days where we used to, stand in the queues for the last date for getting the stamp on the acknowledgement. Now we can file the income tax return, as I said, sitting at our home or from our offices, wherever we are. And we need not, be specific in terms of the timing that the department is at 5:30, department closes at 6 p.m. So therefore we'll have to you know visit the office and make do the filing as soon as possible. No, now we can do the filing even at 11 a.m. or 11 p.m., whatever suits us. We can do that digitally at our convenience. So that is the upside of going digital, and we need not follow the office timings, etc., for making the filing and submissions. Moving on to the digitization of the tax function, what has changed? How has been the experience thus far? Ease of compliance, as I said, we can file at our own convenience. The ease of compliance, no need to visit the offices, so that is a big positive. Manipulation of data and malpractices curve. This is one of the more positive sides, that the data cannot get changed. You cannot change the returns filed. You cannot change the submissions made. You cannot withdraw your submissions. You cannot change the pages. Same thing applies for the tax authorities. They cannot do any manipulation of data or any malpractices. Virtual compliance possible anytime, anywhere. As I said, we can do filing from wherever we are, provided we have the data in our laptop or computer systems. And anytime also, we can do that, even at the time, even after our dinner or early morning, 5 a.m., 6 p.m., 6 a.m., wherever we want, whenever we want, we can do the online compliances. Yes, smaller and remote locations still face challenges where there are connectivity issues, infrastructure issues, etc. But all major tier 1, tier 2, even tier 3 cities are not facing any challenges. There are challenges in remote locations, yes, and that has to be addressed. More governance, less government. This is the theme line. Timely compliance and completion of processes, because you need not wait at the tax offices, or you need not travel all the way to tax offices and wait for the tax authorities or tax officers, which was an issue, or which is an issue earlier. Cumbersome, where piles of data is to be provided electronically. Yes, where for large SSCs or large clients, where we have lot many submissions, lot many documents to be submitted. Earlier, we just used to take photocopies and submit it to the tax authorities or tax officers. But now, if we have to do everything digital, and where the volume of data is high, it will be difficult for for us to scan all the documents, and also there is a limitation on the size of the attachments, etc. So it is cumbersome for our clients where the data is huge. uh, Information accessible at the fingertips. Yes, the information is accessible both to the tax officers as well as to the assessees. At the fingertips, you can log into your account and check the information and the status of your submission, etc. Digital data trail is available both to the taxpayers and the tax department. That is, right from the date of the notice till the date of order, etc. You can see the digital trail, date wise trail. uh, then free flow of data amongst the revenue department, including the data from authorized dealers, banks, RBIs. The hide and seek game is over, that that this data is awaited from RBI, this data is awaited from ED, etc. Now, since everything is digital, the data can be transmitted very easily from one department to another, and also with the recent MOUs being entered into with various government authorities. Old records still not digitized. Yes, this is one problem which we are facing. Now, for certain SSCs, the matters are very old, where the matters might be pending before the tribunal or high court, as the case may be. And those cases pertain to non-digital era. Those data is still in the physical mode, and we are facing challenges for rectification, order giving effects, etc., because the data is not in digital form, and the old files might have been transferred to the warehouse, etc. So that old record is yet to be digitized. So that is where we face problem for rectification, order giving effects, refunds, etc., for old cases. So digital interaction has now become new normal, and also in the recent pandemic, you all might have been working from home, and it has been a new experience and now become a new normal. most of us have realized that there is actually no need to visit our office, forget tax office, but there is actually no need to visit office on a daily basis or a routine basis, because we have been doing work online sitting at our home, and most of us have been doing it successfully. While of course there will be few challenges, etc., but now digital interaction has become the new normal. Current process now, coming to the physical process, what are the shortcomings or what are the issues for the physical hearings, and why do we need the digital platform or the digital hearings? Face to face multiple hearings with bulk paperwork, we pile up files and files of submissions which may or may not be referred by the tax authorities for finalizing the orders. So a lot of paperwork, bulk paperwork, files being wasted, papers being wasted, bureaucratic approach by the officers with limited expertise on complicated matters. For certain specific industries, there will be specific issues. For specific assessees, for specific multinationals, there will be complicated issues. And not that all the tax officers are knowledgeable enough, with due respect to them, and not that they are up to the mark for various technical issues or expertise industry level issues, etc. Unreasonable demands and expectations, I think you all know this better than me. Unreasonable demands and expectations of the tax authorities, it is less said than and discussed about this particular aspect. I'll not go into detail about this, because as I said, you all know better than me. Difference in approach of the officer as well as different tax positions are adopted in different jurisdictions on the same issue. So effectively, the issue might be the same, but for example, tax officers in Mumbai might take different view. Tax officer in Thane might take different view. In fact, uh, within the same department, also the tax officers might take different views, because the data is not available in a digital form. Everybody will take their own view. Every CIT will have their own view. Every DCIT will have their own view. No review mechanism. There is no review mechanism. The assessing officer finalizes the order unless the matter is high value and there is a review by additional commissioner. But generally, there is no review, and the assessing officer finalizes the cases and the assessment orders. And mind you, all the tax officers have their own budgets and targets, have their own budgets and targets. So you might have seen over the years that when March approaches or December approaches, that is the year end for completion of assessment, there is huge pressure on the tax authorities for collection, and therefore they end up doing high pitched assessments, that is doing adjustments, additions, which may not be correct also, but at times they have been doing that, high pitched assessment, unreasonable additions, and thereby raising demand and increasing the I would say the pain for the tax, not just the tax payers but also to the authorized representatives and the chartered accountants for that matter, and thereby increasing litigation also. And resolution to tax litigation takes 5 to 10 years. This is the minimum. It may increase, but it is 5 to 10 years is bare minimum. At times we have seen 15-20 years also, and there is no end to litigation. Waste of time, because we travel. Our office might not be in Churchgate. Our office might not be in near the tax office, so we end up traveling. While we end up traveling, we before reaching the office, we call up the officer, that is the officer available. Even we check and go to the tax office. When we reach there, at times what happens is the tax officer is not available. Then we end up waiting for him. Even if he is available, he is in discussion with chief commissioner, he is in discussion with commissioner, etc., etc. So there is a lot of time in traveling, and not just traveling, waiting for the tax officers in the tax department. So at times we end up spending 1 hour, 2 hour in the tax office without any outcome, without any result. Significant subjectivity is because each officer will tackle the case in a different manner. Inconsistent approach and behaviors, because the officers may act in a different manner. They are inconsistent. Their behaviors might be flawless at times. So that is the problem which we are facing in the physical era. Malpractices and manipulations leads to frustration, as I said, because of their targets, etc. They may end up doing frivolous adjustment, frivolous additions, and raise false demands just to show their you know uh, the demand, just to raise their demand within the system and show that they have achieved their targets. So these malpractices and manipulation lead to frustration not just to the assessees but also to the chartered accountants, because unnecessary work increases for no real outcome as such. So that is the reason, to overcome all these challenges, now we have this digital platform for transparent taxation. The theme line is the honoring the honest, as per the speech of the finance minister, and even before that the honorable prime minister. So now we have faceless assessment, faceless appeal, and the taxpayers charter. This is what we are going to discuss in the upcoming slides. Pillar 3, that is the e-assessment scheme. Now what we'll try to do is I'll try to cover the e-assessment scheme, the nuance, and how the e-assessment is done, etc. And towards the end, I have also tried to cover few common questions which I have come across from various assessees, from various taxpayers, and also various consultants in the form of FAQ sort of thing. I have tried to capture it in the subsequent slides, that what will happen in this particular situation, who will issue notice, etc. So I have tried to cover all the FAQs which I have come across in the subsequent slides. Now, sorry. So I want this particular thing. If you also have any questions, if you have any queries with respect to the e-assessment or faceless assessment, I'll be happy to take up in the question and answer mode in the towards the end, because all of you might have your own issues, your own challenges, or your own questions. So we'll try to have a more interaction towards the end rather than having a monologue in terms of the session going forward. So this is an overview. This is an overview of the faceless and just jurisdictionless e-assessment scheme by harnessing advanced technologies. So you have NEAC, that is for an assessee. NEAC will be the single platform with which we will be interacting. That is National E-Assessment Unit. National E-Assessment Unit will be the single window interface for a taxpayer or the assessee. The very first step will be that the NEAC will issue notice to the taxpayer. Then I need to respond as a taxpayer. I need to respond within 15 days. This is a very brief of the scheme. We will go to the detailed procedure in the subsequent slides. Then the NEAC will allocate the case to the assessment unit, that is AU. We technically call it AU, through AI. This is all happening digital without any human intervention. Everything is happening, the allocation, etc. is happening digitally. There is no human intervention, so there is very less scope for bias or prejudice. Assessment unit also has, so there are two other units, verification unit and also technical unit. So if required, assessment unit will ask the NEAC to get the verification done through verification unit, or if the matter is complicated and it requires expert opinion, expert views, then the assessment unit will ask the NEAC to refer the matter to the technical unit. We will come to the brief functions of each unit in the subsequent slides, that what will AU do, what will VU do, what will TU do. In the pilot basis, of course, opportunity, and then you will be given a draft order. The draft order will be passed on to the assessees, and the assessee will have an opportunity to respond to the draft order. Opportunity of being heard will be given. Then the matter will be assigned to the review unit if required. The review unit will review the draft order and the comments or the submissions of the assessees, and then the order will be finalized and served on the taxpayer. So it is a team-based approach. If you see, you have various units going through the documents, going through the submissions, and then finally passing the order. In the initial phase, we already had 58,000 cases selected on pilot basis. That is before August. 8,000 cases were disposed of without adjustment, no addition. 300 cases were given for further evaluation to VU and TU respectively. Now going forward, we'll have all the cases going through this process of NEAC. What is the objective of this? As I said, as a part of the e-governance program, Digital India Movement, we have this e-assessment or faceless assessment to curb and fight against corruption, because you will not be knowing who the officer is. So there is no question of corruption, or there is no question of bribe, etc., to be offered to the tax officers going forward. This is one of the biggest positives I would see of the faceless assessment if it is done in a proper manner. Reduce turnaround time by elimination of face-to-face communication, because you'll be able to save your time on traveling and waiting time, and thereby you can focus on having quality submissions, and the matters will be resolved in a quicker manner, hopefully. Increase transparency, efficiency, and accountability in the assessment proceedings, because everything is being done online and nothing can be done backdated, nothing can be done offline. So every trail is available on the internet, every trail is available within the system. So it increases transparency, efficiency, and accountability. There is very thin room for malpractices or non-transparency for that matter. Ease of doing business. Yes, there will be few challenges, but no need to visit tax offices. No corruption or reduce corruption is a big positive for ease of doing business. This is in line with global practices across other developed countries. So India is also joining those countries like Australia, UK, New Zealand, etc. So coming to the salient features of faceless assessment, as I said, National E-Assessment Center (NEAC) to act as a nodal agency and a single point of contact between taxpayer and department. So whenever you will receive the notice, it will be through NEAC. You receive any communication, it will be through NEAC. You submit it, you will be submitting it to NEAC. So this will be a single window and single point of contact between the taxpayer and the tax department. Assessment proceedings to be carried out by regional e-assessment centers, that is REAC. Assessment कौन करेगा? Assessment will be done by REAC, that is Regional E-Assessment Center, with the support with various units comprising of, as I said, AU, that is Assessment Unit, Verification Unit, Technical Unit, and Review Unit. Will come to each of these unit in the subsequent slide and what is the role of each units. Taxpayer outside the NEAC or REAC hierarchy, that is our jurisdictional officer, to perform several key functions, which is known as the residual charge. Like the residual charge will be doing rectification, revisions, collection and recovery, OGEs, prosecution, compounding proceedings, etc. So this will be done, and this also has to be done in a faceless manner to the extent possible. If not possible, this will be done in a physical manner. With effect from 13th of August 2020, all the assessment orders, I repeat, all the assessment orders, even for the ongoing assessments, shall be passed by NEAC. So even if you have received any notices prior to 13th August, but the assessment is not concluded, all those cases also will be transferred to NEAC under the scheme, except two exceptions. There are two exceptions. One is the central charge, that is the matters dealing with search, seizure, etc. Then international taxes, that is non-resident, not the domestic companies having transfer pricing, but the non-resident assessees will be continued to be governed by the physical assessments, that is the normal assessment and not the NEAC. This also is digital, because you all know that for non-resident also the assessment is done through online platform, that is the e-filing platform. Any assessment order which is not in conformity with the above shall be treated as non-est and shall be deemed to have never been passed. So it will be considered to be void and non-est. That is, assuming this order was never passed. So all the orders will now have to be passed by NEAC. If an order is passed by any other officer other than NEAC, it will be considered to be invalid. Personal appearance for hearing not permitted. This is a sea change which we are seeing, that there will be no physical hearing allowed. I repeat, no physical hearing allowed. While this is good in a way that no physical hearing allowed, but this may act as a dampener in certain cases where there are complexities and where you need a physical hearing, or you need to explain the case or the facts or the legal aspects to the tax officer. But Physical hearings going forward will not happen. If you need hearings, then the hearing will be allowed only through video conferencing, and that too with the approval of REAC if it fits in the prescribed circumstances which are to be approved by the CBT. So CBT will come out with the SOPs for allowing video conferencing. I repeat, video conferencing will be allowed only on selected complex cases and not in all cases. So whatever you have to say, it has to be through your written submissions, it has to be through your detailed submissions which is to be uploaded online. There will not be an opportunity that is physical hearing or even video conferencing in all cases. Scrutiny selections only through automated processes. So as I said, scrutiny selection will be through automated processes. There will not be any human intervention, no manual involvement in selecting the cases for scrutiny. Abolition of territorial jurisdiction. That is, it is not that your Mumbai based officer only will be doing the assessments for Mumbai. No. The assessment will be done by any other jurisdiction. It can be done by Kolkata, it can be done by Chennai, it can be done by Hyderabad, wherever, because the allotment will be done digitally and you will not be aware that the officer is sitting at which location. So AO situated in other cities and the assessee may not be able to know who the AO is. Central issuance of notices with DIN, as I said, all the notices will have DIN, that is document identification number. So all these trails will be available digitally. Team-based assessment. Earlier, what used to happen is that assessment used to be done by a single officer, right? Your assessing officer only used to issue notices. He only used to go through the submissions, etc., and he only used to pass the order, and he only used to do the raise the demand and do collections, etc. Now we have team-based approach. That is, the draft assessment will be done in one city, review will be done in another city, and finalization can be done in third city. So we have different officers assigned different tasks, and therefore this is going to be a team-based approach, and not just one person will be doing the job. So therefore, this will be in a way it can be good also and it can be bad also, depends on the situation, and only time will tell whether this is good or bad. Because when different people are involved, what can happen is that uh, it will it may bring, efficiency, it may bring quality. However, this may be time consuming also, because if you try to involve more people, obviously the time involved increases, and therefore it might be a time consuming process as well. Only time will tell how it goes in the time, in the years to come. But this of course is a welcome move. Two-thirds of the department's manpower for faceless assessment and balance for functions. Now, as we just saw, 53% have already been transferred for faceless assessment. We will have few more transfers being done to faceless assessments going forward also, and balance for other functions. So uh, only one-third of the staff will be in the residuary charge. Others, two-thirds of the department will be going to the faceless assessment wing. Now coming to the procedure. As you can see, here we have the taxpayer, that is, this is us, taxpayer or the consultant as the case may be. Our interface will be this, that is NEAC, single window interface, NEAC. Then we have the assessment unit, we have the verification unit, we have the technical unit, we have the review unit. Now let us look at the procedure step by step. At the very first step, NEAC will serve notice and call for information from the taxpayer. Step 2, taxpayer will submit the response to NEAC. Step 3, NEAC will assign the case to the assessment unit. Step 4, assessment unit will request for information, verification, or technical assistance as the case may be. So initially what used to happen, the tax officer used to serve the notice, used to submit the response to the tax officer. Then after going through the submission, the tax officer will call for additional information under section 142 etc. Now that role will be played by NEAC. but NESC will just be the user interface. It will just act as an interface. The work will be done by the assessment unit, that is, it will request for information verification or technical assistance. Then NESC will request for inquiry or providing report. This step will be done by verification. Earlier, verification also used to be done by the assessing officer, but now it will be done by the VU, that is the verification unit. Then NESC, if required, it will also request for technical assistance or providing report from the technical unit for technical assistance. We'll come to again the functions of TU, VU in the subsequent slide. Then sending the response, NESC will send the response received from VU and TU to the AU. AU will share the draft assessment order to the NESC. NESC will provide the show cause notice to the taxpayer if there is any addition to be done, or it will finalize the assessment if there is no addition. After the show cause is being provided, the order will be assigned to review. The order will be assigned to review to the review unit. The review unit will review the assessment order and check whether everything is done properly, anything has been missed out or no, etc. That is the job of review unit. So effectively, now you see the draft order is being reviewed by the review unit separately. So it is not just one person doing the job. The review is happening within the department also. This is where I say that the quality is going to increase or quality is going to improve from the department front. And if it concurs, it will give the final order or go ahead for the order to the NESC. Or if it requires any suggestions, any modification, then it will also give the suggestions or modifications to the NESC. NESC then will again provide show cause notice if there is any further addition, or it will finalize the order. Then if there is any modification, it will also provide it to the another assessment unit that this is the modification suggested by the review. Please take care of the same. So assessment unit, this may not be the same assessment unit, this will become other officer. And you will then again send the revised draft order to the NESC, and that again will be provided to the taxpayer before finalizing, and then the order will be finalized after receiving the response from the taxpayer. So effectively, if you see, there is the opportunity of being heard is given twice. One, they provide you the show cause notice. Second, they also provide you the draft assessment order. So if you want to give any submissions on any rebuttal to the tax authorities stand, you have two opportunities. One, that is show cause notice. Second, DAO, that is DAO, that is draft assessment order, against which you can file submissions or your rebuttals. Key potential benefits of the faceless assessment. It will be completely faceless. आपको किसी का शक्ल देखना नहीं पड़ेगा. Dynamic jurisdictions. Any officer sitting anywhere from the country can do the assessment. Technology oriented approach, so therefore the procedure or the processes will be standardized and it will not be manipulated, or it cannot be manipulated. Transparency and accountability, the digital trail will be there right from the date of notice till the number of adjournments, etc. Everything will be, the entire trail will be there in the system. Reduced arbitrariness for gaining taxpayer trust. So as I said, everything is going to be digital and there will be very minimum human intervention. So therefore, it is going to bring transparency and reduce arbitrariness and gain taxpayers trust. Now, while these are the good points, we need to navigate, even the tax department needs to navigate through this change, wherein they need robust pan-India IT infrastructure, both the department as well as the assessees. AI-based random audit allocation. This allocation will be done randomly based on the key parameters. Refined risk-oriented scrutiny approach, rather than issuing notices to all the assessees beyond a particular threshold. Integrities of anonymous proceedings. This is important because the anonymity is the key for this particular process. You will not come to know who the officer is. So therefore, the bribe, etc., or manipulations will reduce to a larger extent. Updated role of jurisdictional tax officials, because tax officials' role will reduce to a larger extent, and their role will be restricted to rectifications, order giving effects, refunds, demands, etc. Inter-department exchange for cross-referencing. As I said, within the department also the data will be exchanged from AU to RU to TU, etc. for cross-referencing, and also between the departments, that is income tax department and GST department, for a simple example, that also is going to be done in the uh, time to come. So what is the perspective for various I would say aspects of e-assessments? The very first issue is with respect to the quality of assessments. So the revenues perspective will be, they need to comprehend the business and the industry dynamics. So the department will have to understand the business dynamics, they will have to understand the industry, etc., if they want to bring in the specialization. Or at the same time, for the taxpayer's perspective, robust, clear, and concise submission is important. Now, gone are the days where we used to physically meet the officers, explain them the case, and based on our relationship, they used to pass the order also without any written submission. Now that is not going to happen. You will not be given an opportunity for physical hearing, and only on rarest of rare cases you will be given opportunity for video conferencing. So आपके पास क्या ऑप्शन बचता है? To make the quality submission, to make proper submission having facts of the case, issues involved, or the specific submission, and also the legal submission. So factual submission, legal submission, as well as a technical submission. So your submission has to be robust, clear, and concise in order to avoid any addition or disallowance. Divergent tax positions, random jurisdiction, audit allocation. So you will not know who will be handling your case. As far as revenue is concerned, generally we have seen that the tax officers have pro revenue inclination irrespective of jurisdiction. Officer kahan pe bhi ho, their perspective is very clear that the assessee is hiding something and there has to be some addition for this particular case. Audit quality and timeliness. This reduced timelines and limited personal interactions can impact audit quality, because what is going to happen from tax officers perspective, they only have the written submissions, they don't have any explanation from the assessing of from the authorized representatives or the assessee. So this has the reduced timelines, because you have multiple people also involved. You have RU, you have TU, and you also have the NEAC in between. So multiple units being involved, it reduces the timelines, and limited personal interactions may impact the audit quality. While the purpose is to have different people, is so that different people can apply their mind and improve the quality, but it may go other way around also. It may go other way around also and hamper the quality. From assessee's perspective, you need to be proactively prepared for ensure timely replies. You cannot keep sitting on the notices and not respond to the notices, because within 15 days you have to respond to the tax officer's notice. Earlier what we used to do, we just used to call the officer कि हम लोग ऑडिट में बिजी है, हम लोग टैक्स ऑडिट में बिजी है, ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग ऑडिट में बिजी है, we'll make the submissions later on, and we never used to file physical adjournment letters also at times. So all that will go away, and we need to be proactive in filing responses. And even if you want adjournments, we'll have to practically file the adjournment applications online rather than calling the officers, which is not going to be possible going forward. Transfer of case, the case can be transferred to the jurisdictional officer if it warrants so. In that case, again, it will create hardship for the taxpayers, because again the file transfer, etc., the procedure will take time. Refund rectification proceedings, this will be done by the jurisdictional officer, and therefore the procedure will remain, or the process will be done by your jurisdictional tax officer and not the NEAC. So NEAC's job is to do the assessment. Post assessment thing will be done by your jurisdictional assessing officer. That is the change. Advantages of the scheme: ease of compliances for the taxpayer, elimination of harassment, unethical practices, and corruption. This is what we discussed. Transparency and efficiency, because entire trail will be available online. The audit trail will be available online. Functional specialization. Improvement in quality of assessment, because functional specialization and improvement in quality, because you will be having technical unit which will be subject level expertise and industry level expertise. So therefore it is expected that the quality of assessment will increase or improve. Expeditious and timely disposal of cases, because you have multiple people to do the job, so the responsibilities are being shared, and hopefully this can result into timely disposal of cases. Decrease in cost of compliance, because you don't have to travel to tax offices, there is no waiting time, so this will decrease the cost of compliance. Travel time saved, the cost of travel saved, the physical printing cost saved, etc. Eliminates case of non receipt or delayed receipt of notices. Many a times when notices are sent physically, they are stuck in the post offices, or they are received by someone in the admin, but it doesn't reach the finance department, etc. But now the notices will be issued to the authorized person. Basically, you will give the email address of the finance director or the finance person. So the notices will be received directly in his inbox. So there is no question of notice not being received, etc. At the same time, you can also check the status of your case online, that is in the e-filing portal. So that is where you can track the case rather than waiting for the notices or the notices being misplaced, etc. Those things will not happen going forward. Uniform positions on various legal issues across different tax jurisdictions. This is what the department is aiming at. That many a times what happens is Mumbai is taking a different position, Chennai is taking different position. The attempt will now be going forward. The attempt is to be made that across India the position will be uniform, and therefore it will reduce litigation. That is the I would say the purpose, but only time will tell whether that will be successful or not. Review mechanism should result into a fair and reasonable assessment, because effectively the orders are being reviewed, and therefore uh, different officers will give their own opinion, and if it doesn't warrant any addition, then that addition will be deleted based on the inputs given by the review unit. Disadvantages of the scheme or shortcomings, I would say: crunch timelines. As I said that since multiple people are involved, the expectations of timely compliance increases, so it will result into a crunch timelines. You are dependent on too many people. Could build pressure in certain situations both on tax authorities and taxpayers, if the assessments are done at the last minute. Complex issues may not get addressed or apprehended properly, because many a times complex issues are require or complex issues require explanation, personal hearing, and personal discussion with the tax officers, which is not going to happen going forward. Personal repo and influence go away. So this is where, sorry.
Request all the participants to kindly mute themselves.
Yeah, thank you. Personal repo and influences go away, because what happens is that since we have been interacting with the tax officers and they are aware of our caliber, they are aware of our technical knowledge, etc. Many a times they rely on us, and based on our discussion, oral discussion also, they pass favorable orders or clean assessment orders. That comfort which was there till now will go away. Even I gave you the example of simple example of adjournment. Based on our relationship, we used to take adjournments over the phone call itself. Now that is not going to happen. This all personal repo and influences will go away. Constant monitoring of emails and taxpayers accounts on the portals. You will have to check your emails if you are not doing so on a regular basis, if is there any notice coming, etc. You may also require to check your spam initially, because possible that if it comes from NEAC and you don't have the email address saved in your address book, it may go into your spam, and therefore you will need to check the accounts, that is online portal also, if is there any notice issued, etc. Additional cost of investment in hardware and software, both by the tax officers, as that is income tax department, as well as the assessee, because we need to have proper infrastructure, hardware, software for making submissions for PDF files, etc. Proper justification could be difficult without personal hearing. This is what I said, that in certain complex cases you need personal hearing so as to you can explain it to the officer, which is not going to happen in the future. Extra time and effort in digitizing the documents and uploading lengthy submissions pose more challenges. As I said, that you will have to, earlier we just used to do photocopy and give the submission to the tax officers. Now we'll have to scan the invoices, scan the documents and upload them. Of course, if you have multiple documents or the size increases 50 MB, etc., then you have another challenge of uploading the documents, etc. So that is another challenge which is to be addressed in the near future. Last but not the least, all taxpayers could be painted with the same brush. So effectively, if there is an addition in one of the assessees in, say, chemical industries, all the assessees in the chemical industry will face the same addition, and thereby all the taxpayers could be painted with the same brush without knowing the background or facts of the cases. So these are the I would say features or advantages and disadvantages. So now, what is the change in the law? As I said earlier, we had e-assessment scheme applicable up to 12th of August 2020. Section 143(3)(a) to 143(3)(c) have been inserted by Finance Act 2020 or 2018 rather, where the powers are given to the central government to make a scheme for e-assessment by notification in the official gazette. Subsequently, on 7th of October 2019, e-assessment scheme was launched by the Revenue Secretary with the inauguration of NEAC. So NEAC was inaugurated in October 2019. Even after the launch of the said scheme, practically all the cases were being done by the jurisdictional officer only, and only few cases were done by NEAC till date. However, from 13th of August 2020, all the cases except the search cases, that is central charge and international tax cases, will be done by NEAC. Assessment orders which are not in conformity with the faceless scheme shall be treated as non-est. The principal commissioner or the principal director general of income tax in charge of NEAC may at any stage, if considered necessary, transfer the case to the AO, that is to the jurisdictional officer, with the prior approval of the board. So the case can be transferred to a jurisdictional officer, of course, with the prior approval of the board. So therefore, up to 12th August, everything used to be done by the jurisdictional officer. After 13th August, everything will be done by the NEAC, except the reassessment, search assessment, best judgment assessment. All these used to be done by the jurisdictional officer. Now, if you see what changes, search assessment and cases related to international tax is outside the purview of the faceless assessment. Apart from that, all assessments will be done by NEAC under the faceless scheme. So as we see, as we discussed, you have NEAC, which is a single interface for the taxpayer. You have assessment unit, verification unit, technical unit, and review unit. So these are the 4 units in the REAC, that is Regional E-Assessment Center. Now, what are the functions of these 4 respective units? So coming to the 4 units. First, assessment unit. Assessment unit क्या करेगा? They will identify the issues, identification of issues relevant to the conduct of an assessment, seek information or identified issues, from the taxpayer or other units, analyzing the information furnished by the taxpayers, and frame draft assessment order. This is the role of assessment unit. Verification unit क्या करेगा? They will conduct inquiries, cross verification, examination of books, etc., examination of witnesses and recording of statements through video conference. जो 133(6) में होता था, that will be done by the verification unit. Technical unit. Now, technical unit will be very, very crucial going forward, because they will be experts from legal, accounting, forensic, IT, valuation, audit, transfer pricing, data analytics, management, or any other technical matter. So earlier, the problem was that the assessing officer himself had to do everything, but for the lack of knowledge or lack of expertise, he was not able to do justice to the assessments, which may go for the assessee or which may also go against the assessee. So it was a double-edged sword. Now you have a specific unit that is called a special unit called technical unit, where you have the subject level experts who will help to frame the assessment, and they will be very, very crucial for forming the opinion or forming the draft assessment. Review unit, this is a again a unit which will review the draft assessment order. एक बार असेसमेंट यूनिट से ड्राफ्ट असेसमेंट ऑर्डर आएगा, वो जाएगा रिव्यू यूनिट के पास, डायरेक्टली ऑर्डर पास नहीं होगा, इट विल गो टू द रिव्यू यूनिट. Review unit will review the draft assessment orders. It will check whether the material evidences have been brought on record. It will check whether all the additions have been done which should have been made, and the applicable judicial precedents have been incorporated in the order, so that in appeal the order cannot be challenged, or the order will stand good on technical grounds in terms of the appeal matters also. Last but not the least, they will check the arithmetical correctness and modification of the modification or correctness of modifications proposed. This is what is the role of the RU. So this is the distribution of responsibilities to 4 units. Earlier, sorry, all these jobs used to be done by a single person. Now you have a team of officers who will be working together and give you a quality assessment order. Key challenges, as I said, cases under 263 and 264 are not covered, but let me tell you, if this works properly, then 263 and 264 may not be needed going forward, because you have your review unit where you will have senior officers, etc., reviewing the orders, etc. So going forward, to my mind, if this goes well, 263 and 264 review may not be required at all. But yes, as of today, review is not covered in RE in this particular thing, and it will be continued with the jurisdictional officer. Risk management strategy. So this is what is a key. Risk management strategy is key. That is this will be the basis for selecting the case for scrutiny. This will be the basis for selecting the case for scrutiny. Whether it will be available in the public domain is a question. If you ask me, this will not be available in the public domain, because this is something which will be an internal document of the tax department, and they will like to keep it secret, and they will like to keep it with themselves and not share it with the public at large. Jurisdiction no longer to be based on location. As I said, that jurisdiction is no more relevant. Assessee in Mumbai can be assessed by Kolkata, reviewed by Hyderabad, and final order passed by Chennai. This is very much possible. Verification done by Bihar, that is also possible. So you have different units located at different locations. Jurisdiction is no longer relevant. Review clause. So review clause may dilute the effectiveness of CIT appeal process, because many a times we know that what CIT appeal does is generally he just accepts the order of the assessing officer, and then we move on to the ITAT. Now that you have review in place, the CIT appeal will very well rely on the order, and he will say that it has already been reviewed, so it does not need further deliberation, and therefore he will dismiss the appeal. So therefore it may dilute the effectiveness of CIT appeal. In a way, this may be blessing in disguise also, जिसकी वजह से हम ट्राइब्यूनल जल्दी पहुंचेंगे, and once we reach the tribunal earlier, the litigation cycle will reduce, and we may get the end result earlier rather than waiting for years together. Also, as you are aware that the time limit or the limit, the amount involved has been increased for filing appeal for tax department to 50 lakhs. The tax effect of 50 lakhs. If the tax effect is more than 50 lakhs, only then the department can file an appeal before the appellate level at ITAT and High Court, as the case may be. Video recordings. Evidence can be used for the benefit of assessee or department either which ways, because if it is a hearing, VC hearing, that hearing will be recorded and it can be used as evidence before the court of law. Technological issues or glitches could attract penalty, because many times there may be various technical glitches in making submissions specifically for assessees at lower or at the rural locations, etc. They may not be technologically upgraded, and there may attract penalty, etc. Exceptions for physical interaction possible, looks unlikely, but we'll wait for the SOPs to come, and we'll come to know what happens going forward. Formal grievance mechanism not prescribed. Will it act as a dark box? We don't know, because who will be the officer? We don't know. Who are we interacting with? We don't know. We are interacting with somebody we don't know. So will it act as a dark box? We are filing our submission, but nothing is happening, and everything is going against us. We don't know. Time will tell whether we will it act as dark box or no. Submission and handling of bulk data requested during assessments. As I said, there is a limit on the upload size, which is 50 MB. What happens if we have bulk uploads, we have multiple submissions, we have multiple documents to be uploaded beyond 50%, beyond 50 MB. So that will be another challenge of submission and handling of bulk data. Maintenance of books of account and documents in original, that is physical form, for 8 years. Is it relevant going forward? The answer is it may not be relevant, because now entire data is online. We have Tally, we have ERP, etc. So most of the books of account and documents are maintained digitally. So points for discussion for faceless assessment: impact of historical adjustments made by the AO under the new scheme. For example, there are few adjustments, few additions being done in the past. Whether the officer will continue to do so, possibly or arguably yes. Press assessment proceedings, who will issue the notice under 148? Now, few of these questions have been answered by the tax authorities, and I have covered that in the subsequent slide by way of FAQs. Set aside proceedings, whether handled by NESE or jurisdictional AO. Penalty proceedings, whether covered under the scheme. Revenue target for NESE, this is important. There is no target for NESE, because NESE is responsible only for doing assessments, right? So what used to happen earlier is that your assessing officer also used to have targets. Since he had his own target, he used to make frivolous additions, he used to make unnecessary additions just to meet his revenue target, which may not happen going forward, because NESE has no target. So there is no motivation for them to do frivolous adjustments or frivolous additions. Provision for personal hearing, as I said, as of now there is no such provision. Timeline for completion of assessment under the scheme, whether it will be easier to meet the timelines with so many people involved. Jurisdictional high court orders, whether they will follow, they have to follow. We'll come to it in the subsequent slide by way of FAQs. Behavior mapping of assessees, this is important. That entire behavior mapping of the assessee will be done right from the filing of return of income, filing of adjournment, how many adjustments have they taken, whether they are seriously filing the submissions on time, whether they are making quality submissions, etc. Entire behavior mapping of the assessee is being done. At the same time, the behavior mapping of the officers is also being done in the back end, that how the officers are acting on the submissions received, how they are filing, how they are drafting the assessment order, etc. Behavior mapping is mutual. It is both for the assessees as well as for the tax officers. NESE at any stage may transfer to the jurisdiction after obtaining approval of CBDT. Now, this is important. If you transfer the case to jurisdictional officer, then effectively it becomes a normal assessment and it may not be a faceless assessment. Scheme for faceless appeals to be announced. This will be effective from 25th September. So maybe next week you can expect something on faceless assessment being announced and the scheme for the same. Post completion of the assessment, the NESE will transfer all the electronic records to the jurisdictional AO, and the demand, collection, etc. rectification will be done by the jurisdictional AO, as I mentioned earlier. When notices or intimation will be issued under faceless regime, it will be issued by the NESE. With a dynamic jurisdiction, the judicial precedent of which region would be applied under the faceless regime? Jurisdiction of the assessee or regional assessment centers. So, for example, the matter is based of an assessee who is from Mumbai. Assessee is from Mumbai, so therefore Bombay High Court is the jurisdictional high court. Ideally, that should apply. But the officer is sitting in Assam. Since the officer is sitting in Assam, is it necessary that he will be aware of the jurisdictional judgment of the Bombay High Court? The answer is probably no. He may not be aware. So he may apply the judgment of Assam court. Can he do so? The answer is no, he cannot do so, because the jurisdiction of the assessee will prevail and not the REAC. I have covered this in the FAQ in the subsequent slide. Whether draft assessment order would be served upon the assessee in all cases, the answer is yes, it will be served. Whether past history of the assessee be made available to the NESE and role it would apply in the conduct of faceless. Again, I have covered it in the subsequent slides. Whether NESE will have proper power to levy penalty. If yes, I have also covered this in the FAQs. So let us move to the FAQs issue by issue in the subsequent slides, which will give you the answers to all these open questions. That is, who will lay down the circumstances for personal hearing, whether claim not considered in ITR, that is fresh claims can be claimed, how would the 360-degree profiling of the taxpayer impact the faceless assessment proceedings, what is the procedure for seeking adjournment, whether there is any mechanism for faceless regime to change. I have covered this in the FAQs. Now this FAQ is based on the answers given by the tax authorities. This is based on the answers given by the tax authorities. So therefore this is useful for us to give answers to various questions which we have in our mind. Of course, if you have any additional questions, I have tried to capture as many as possible in my presentation, but of course if you have additional questions, we can take it up towards the end. How can we determine whether the assessee's case is selected for FAS? So as per the CBDT's notification dated 13th August, all the pending cases existing as well as new, except international tax and central charge, will be done through FAS. So notice from NESE will be issued shortly to the email ID registered with the tax portal or mentioned in the return of income. An assessee can regularly visit the e-proceeding tab. So you also need to visit the e-proceeding tab on the income tax portal to check whether any notice has been issued or not, just in case you have not received the email or it has gone in your spam. So as I said, couple of things which are excluded. One is central circle and other is international tax. Now international tax is simple, that is the non-resident assessees. But what do you mean by central circle? Central circle में क्या क्या आता है? Survey, search and seizure, serious frauds, major tax evasion, Black Money Act and Benami cases fall in the range of central circle. For ongoing assessments, will a fresh notice be issued by NESE? The notice will be issued by NESE in due course. So the notices will be issued even for ongoing assessments shortly. Whether in faceless regime, uploading of voluminous data would be a challenge. As I said, there is a limit of 50 MB. So the questions were raised to the tax authority is that how do we come up with this challenge? That is, in most cases, the data is huge. So this 50 MB will not work if you want to update the complete submission. So the answer by the department is that they are trying to improve the infrastructure, and going forward this size of 50 MB will be improved, hopefully. When an assessee makes submission on his letterhead, in that case the revenue department would be knowing the contact person and the telephone number. Can the faceless assessment team call the assessee? Now this is where the fear is, that if I am doing the assessment in faceless scheme, that is I am the assessee, I'll be making submission on my letterhead. So mera contact details, address, everything will be there. Contact number, email address will be there on the letterhead. But I don't know anybody from the department. So what if somebody calls me taking that number and saying that I am calling you from the faceless assessment, etc.? The answer to that is they cannot call you. Only your jurisdictional assessing officer can call you. Any other officer from RESE or NESE can never ever call you. It is not tolerable. If you receive a call, you can lodge a complaint against that particular officer or giving that particular number. Next, whether the assessee will be given an opportunity of being heard if the adjustments are made to the return income. As I said, that you will be issued a show cause notice and you will also be issued a draft assessment order. So you are given two opportunities. One is at the time of show cause and second is at the time of draft assessment order to reply or to respond to file technical submission against the proposed additions. So you are given two opportunities, which was not the case earlier. Earlier आपको सिर्फ show cause notice दिया जाता था and बाद में आपके submission के बाद assessment final हो जाता था. Now you have here two level of submissions to be done, right? And at times earlier क्या होता था, assessment order used to come as a surprise to you. आपको लगता था कि ऑफिसर ने हमारा सबमिशन एक्सेप्ट कर लिया है, बट जब ये assessment order आता था, there is a huge addition. So it may act as a surprise to you also. But here At least they are giving you a show cause notice and they are giving you a draft order before finalizing the order. Whether uploading of responses through portal without DSC is enough or will it be considered void? Till now what we used to do is we just used to submit the scan copy of the physical submission and we never used to apply a fixed DSC. But now in faceless, para 9 of faceless assessment scheme says that authentication of electronic record wherein it is clarified that document can either be uploaded through DSC, you have to use DSC, or EVC, that is electronic verification code. Any of these two is mandatory for making a filing or submission before the tax authorities. What is the procedure for seeking adjournment? As I said, you need to file adjournment. You will not be able to call the officer, but you will have to file the adjournment letter with the and the AU will convey to the assessee whether adjournment is granted or not through NEAC. अपने लिए I repeat, NEAC is a single window. Any communication will come through NEAC and we will be submitting to NEAC only. Whether under faceless regime a limited scrutiny can be changed to complete scrutiny, technically they cannot do that, but the answer given by them is that we can expect some clarification by the tax department on this regard. But technically, if you ask me whether a limited scrutiny can be converted to a completed scrutiny, the answer is no, unless the matter involves serious non-compliance by the assessee. Next, how would the cases be allocated to REAC or assessment unit? Would complexities of the business, huge size or transaction, business profile, etc. be considered? So what I understand is everything will be computer based and random allocation. There will not be any human intervention or any application of mind by human being. It is all based on the filters provided under the SOPs, and the picking up of cases, etc. and allocation will be done by AI, that is artificial intelligence. With dynamic jurisdiction, the judicial precedents, as I said, which judicial precedent will be relevant and which will be applied in under the faceless regime, the jurisdiction of the assessee or the REAC. So as I said, the law of land is very clear. If I am in Mumbai, Bombay High Court is applicable to me. So for consistency, department is striving for standardization. However, law of land will continue. That is, if I am in Mumbai, Bombay High Court will continue. If I am in Rajasthan, Rajasthan High Court will continue. If I am in Gujarat, Gujarat High Court will continue. The High Court decision of the jurisdiction of the AO would continue to hold good even after FAS unless Supreme Court reverses the decision. Whether past history of the assessee would be made available to the NEAC, the answer is yes. All the past histories, at least 3 years records will be available to the NEAC in the ITBA. If they want, they can call for the old records also. And they may complete the scrutiny and they will also retain the year-on-year adjustment. So will they continue the year-on-year adjustments? If they pertain to legal issues, then yes, they will continue to have those additions in the years to come also. Who will lay down the circumstances for personal hearing? NEAC will do that after seeking approval from CBDT. A new set of SOP is expected in this regard, and we expect a SOP on how to allow a video conferencing or hearing, which is to be given by CBDT. Of course, with an approval of Chief Commissioner, it can be done going forward. Once we have the SOP in place, we will come to know the more details and nuances about the VC. Whether NEAC will have the power to levy the penalty, they can levy only the penalty for non-responding, that is 271B, etc. Non-filing of response to the notice, etc. If it is 270A, that is penalty for under-reporting, misreporting, that all will be done by the jurisdictional officer. As I said, the role of the NEAC is restricted to assessment. So any penalty arising during the course of assessment, they can levy. But after the assessment proceedings, the penalty proceedings will be initiated currently by the jurisdictional assessing officer. Of course, I would like to highlight here that faceless penalty scheme is also in progress. They are also coming out with faceless penalty scheme. Once that is out, even the penalty will be done in a faceless manner. Next, in a case where no response has been received from the assessee despite reminders, how will physical inquiry be conducted? Now, many a case what happens is the department calls for the 133.6. The department will call for 133.6, that is cross examination or cross verification of other assessees or confirmation from third party, etc. Despite of various notices, there is no response. Then what will they do? They will this will be in line with the SOP. The SOPs are being framed in this regard for physical inquiry also, and they are awaited. Who will undertake TP? Now this is interesting because transfer pricing cases, there are divergent views in the tax department itself. Different officers are giving different views, but the general view that is coming is that there is a technical team, there is a technical unit available, wherein we will be having transfer pricing experts, you will be having TP officers also. So because what will happen is, for non-resident cases, any which ways the matter is going to be handled by the jurisdictional officer. The question is only for the resident cases. The question is only for resident cases because they will be under faceless. So for resident cases, who will do the technical, whether TP assessment will be done by the TO, that is TU, that is technical unit, or your jurisdictional TPO. The answer to that is that TU is there, TU is in place, and it will have transfer pricing officers. So ideally the TU will do, but again the SOPs are being drafted for this, and we'll need to see the fine print what comes for the transfer pricing assessments for the domestic assessees also. What will happen to pending rectification or OGs? As I said, it will be done by the jurisdiction officer. Whether the option of filing additional evidence under Rule 46A, can you file additional evidence? The answer is yes. This is specifically for appeals, etc. Who will do the remand report in case of Rule 46A? The remand report will be done by the jurisdictional officer. And as I said, faceless appeal scheme is also expected, which will be effective from 25th September. So maybe in a week or so, we will receive a clarity on all these aspects of faceless appeals. Now, while filing the appeal, we are required to mention the name or the jurisdiction of the officer, that is DCIT range 1312, etc. What name we should give there? So the answer is very clear. You should give the name of your RJAO, that is your jurisdictional officer, while filing the appeal. However, once we have the faceless appellate scheme, this will also get clarified in the faceless appellate scheme. Which authority will have the power to withhold the refund under 241A? As I said, refund, etc. will be done by the jurisdictional officer. So all this will be done by your jurisdictional officer. Which authority will process the refund? Again, jurisdictional officer along with CPC will issue the refund. Whether TDS proceeding will be covered in faceless? As of now, no. They are going to be continued in the physical scheme or the face-to-face proceeding. There is no TDS, there is no provision currently. It may happen in the near future, but currently TDS proceedings will be done by a jurisdictional TDS officer only. Would DRP be covered? Currently, while there is no clarification, we understand that DRP will continue to function in the same way as present, but DRP, considering the current pandemic, they may also conduct the virtual hearing through video call, etc., video conferencing, etc. Whether draft assessment order would be served to the assessee in all cases. So here, as I said, you have two opportunities. First, when they are proposing the adjustment to the return income, you will be given a show cause, and your draft assessment order will also be given along with the show cause notice. So you are given two opportunities for responding or filing your submissions. In case where adjustments are not proposed, because if they are clearing your submissions and not having any adjustments or addition, there is no requirement for draft assessment order. You will be directly served the final assessment order. Whether a principal CIT of RJO would have the revision powers under 263, as I said, law remains the same, nothing changes. So 263 will remain with RJO, but as I said, that going forward, if this faceless scheme goes well, there will be no need for 263 or 264 because of the various units, the review units, the technical unit coming into picture. Who will conduct reassessment proceedings? Where the notice, that is 148, when notices are already issued, the cases will be transferred to NESE, but where fresh notices are issued, that will be done by the jurisdictional AO currently. Ultimately, maybe later on they'll be transferred to NESE, but currently the fresh notices etc. will be issued by the jurisdictional AO only. Whether the claims not considered in the ITR, that is fresh claims, can be made before NESE, the answer is again it remains the same. Law prior to, nothing changes. It is just that from physical we are going to digital. So there is no change in terms of the procedural aspects etc., or rather the legal aspects for that matter. Whether principal CIT of RJO, this is what we already discussed in the earlier slide 263. So these were the few FAQs which I tried to cover. Now coming to the taxpayers' readiness, and this is also applicable to the consultants and chartered accountants. What do we need to do to overcome this challenge of faceless assessments? We need to have robust documentation trail, particularly in relation to potential issues or disallowances which have already been taken place in the past. So we need to be ready with our submissions well in advance rather than waiting for the notice. Reconciliation of various data points as required to be furnished during the course of the assessments, that is reconciliation with information as per 26 AS etc. All those we need to do well in advance because we know that that is going to be asked. Self-explanatory written submissions, this is important. Our drafting skills has to be improved big time. We need to draft our submissions very diligently in a lucid manner, comprising of factual and legal aspects, everything, because here you will not be given any personal hearing. Everything will have to be only by way of your written submission. So your drafting skills will play a very important role in the faceless assessments. Identify gaps in the documents or facts prior to the initiation of the proceedings to ensure increase in efficiency. If there is any gap in documentation etc., you should work on it well in advance rather than waiting for the notice to be issued. Timely compliances with notices to avoid stringent penalties for non-compliances. As I said, you need to respond within 15 days. So everything is system driven. If you don't comply, the notice also will be generated automatically, I believe, from the system, and the penalty will be initiated. Focus on quality versus quantity. So as I said, this is important. Proper review of submissions being filed. Gone are the days when we keep on the heap of files or the bulk data before the tax officer and say that we have given you everything. Now here the focus will be more on quality rather than quantity. So as I said, your written submissions has to be very qualitative, to the point, no unnecessary information, no unnecessary legal arguments etc. Keep it to the point, keep it relevant, so that the officer can take an informed decision. More strategic to be applied on technical submissions. As I said, since there is no physical hearing, you need to be more strategic in terms of applying your mind etc. for the technical submissions. Submission should be more concise and clear. As I said, as department shall be setting up a separate technical unit which will cover the industry specific expertise. So this is where the department is going to work for, that they will be having industry specific expertise, and the technical unit will be, say for example, pharma sector, consumer sector. The sector level expertise will be coming into the technical unit and the review unit. So therefore the quality of assessments will improve. So at the same time, we also need to improve our submission and make it to the point, because department is gearing up with the technical expertise. So we also should gear up in the same manner. Constant monitoring of email and logging portal to check whether any notices have been received, so that we don't miss out on any notices. Other important issues to be considered, that is digitalized documents, file size, data connectivity, authorized digital signature, etc. All these should be in place rather than running around at the last moment. Transformation of tax function within the office of the advisors and taxpayers. So we also need to rejig the manner in which we function. So because this change is going to impact not just the assessees, not just the tax authorities, but also the consultants and advisors. Adherence to the code of conduct for virtual court hearings. You cannot, for example, there is a tribunal hearing or CIT appeal hearing online or faceless assessment hearing online. You cannot be in a casual mode, you have to follow the code of conduct, that is your dressing sense, etc. Blazer, shirts, ties, etc. All those needs to be taken care even in the virtual hearings. Investment in IT infrastructure, technology, and changes in process, because you need to have proper laptops, computer systems, internet connectivity, technology for scanning, etc. Everything has to be there. Ongoing training to the team members, because this is the new normal. We are changing the entire process. We are going digital. So we need to train our team members on how to tackle with the faceless assessment scheme. Change in the mindset of the stakeholders. This is very, very important. Gone are the days of settlement, gone are the days of calling the officers and getting things done, etc. This is an entire change, and this is an era of transparency. So therefore, we need to change our entire mindset. So this is the infrastructure required, which is what we already discussed. Easily accessible video conferencing centers at various locations of the country, dedicated helpline, customer care numbers, use of robust technology, acceptance of bulk file with no restriction on file size, appropriate training to tax officers as well as staff, mega servers to store the data, because everything is online. So the data will be huge considering the size of our country. High speed internet infrastructure in tax offices, because they'll be working online, so they also need proper internet infrastructure. Digitization of old records, this is important for smooth transitioning, because something in physical, something in digital won't work. Everything has to be digitalized going forward. Taxpayers charter, uh, I think this is what the finance minister also said in her speech on 1st of February, that to build the trust, they propose to bring this taxpayers charter. I won't spend much time on this, because you might have heard already on the taxpayers charter. So this is nothing but framing responsibilities on the tax authorities as well as on the taxpayers, and bringing in transparency. So if you see taxpayers rights, for the first time in the history, we are seeing taxpayers rights under the income tax law, under section 119A. Right to be treated with fairness and impartiality, right to be treated as honest and tax compliant, and not that all taxpayers are thieves, or not that all taxpayers are cheaters. Right for certainty, we as taxpayers need clarity, and we should not be in dark that what will happen, what additions will be made. Right to pay no more than the correct amount of tax, right not to be subject to retrospective taxation. Taxation only can be, any changes can only be prospective. This is very, very important. Right to minimize compliance cost, right to be advised, right to be advised and represented by a person on the taxation methods, be it chartered accountants or lawyers. Right to appeal, right to privacy and confidentiality of the information we hold about you. So for example, your income tax return, etc., everything is in the digital form. Department should not give it to the media as it is happening currently. That media is having income tax returns of various celebrities, etc., and disclosing various informations which are confidential. Right to know what information we hold about you. So you should be aware as taxpayer that what all information about you is available with the tax officers. Right for the licit arrangement of your tax affairs that minimize your tax liabilities. So if you see on the income tax website itself, various informations, etc., are now being made available to the taxpayers for information and knowledge. Right to request for a payment plan. If the demand is huge, then you may also request for a payment plan, installments, etc. Right to complain about our services, that is grievance redressal. They also expect something from the taxpayers, right? It should be mutual. So what is the taxpayer's obligation or expectation from taxpayer? Obligation to be honest. We should be honest and pay due tax which is due from our end. Next, obligation to be compliant and cooperate when you deal with the tax department. You should cooperate with the tax authorities and not, argue, etc. Now, of course, everything is online, but still you should cooperate with the tax authorities. Obligation to keep proper records in accordance with the law. Obligation to file proper and complete tax documents and effect payment by statutory due dates, make the payments within time limit. Obligation to inform the tax department about changes in the circumstances. If there is any change, you need to inform it to the tax officers, tax department. Obligation to know your responsibilities and consequences for non-compliances. So you should be aware. You cannot say that I was not aware of the law. I was not aware of my responsibilities. You cannot say that. It is your obligation to know your responsibilities and also the consequences for non-compliance. So department is committed to provide fair, courteous and reasonable treatment, treat taxpayer as honest, provide mechanism for appeal and review, provide complete and accurate information, provide timely decisions, collect the correct tax amount, respect the privacy, maintain confidentiality, hold its authorities accountable, enable representative of choice, provide mechanism to lodge complaint, provide a fair and just system, publish service standard and report periodically, reduce the cost of compliance, and it expects the taxpayers, this is what we just discussed, to be honest and compliant, be informed, keep accurate records, know what the representative does on his behalf. So you cannot say कि ये तो मेरे सीए ने किया है मुझे पता नहीं था. You should be aware of what your chartered accountant is doing. You cannot run away saying कि ये तो सीए ने किया मैंने कुछ नहीं किया. Respond in time and pay in time. So this is all about taxpayers charters. In the want of the time, I think we can move on to the faceless appeals. As I said, with effect from 25th of September, all the appeals are going to be faceless. So let me quickly touch upon on the faceless appeals as we close on to the session. All the appeals except serious frauds, major tax evasions and international tax will be faceless. So the way forward will be transformation of tax functions with the office of the advisors and taxpayers. This is what we discussed earlier, change in the mindset, focus on quality versus quantity, more strategic thinking, timely compliances, ongoing training, maintain exhaustive documentation for each and every transactions. This is the way forward which we discussed earlier also, that this is something which we need to take care. So last pillar, as I said, virtual hearings. Earlier we used to have courtroom hearings. Now we'll be having virtual. High Court Tribunal has already started going virtual. All 27 ITAT appeals have started VC hearings, and India leads the globe with 700 judgments in this lockdown. In this lockdown, India has passed 700 judgments. If you see Times of India article dated 16th of June, as compared to other countries, US 20, UK 15, and Australia 12. So India is the front runner in virtual hearings for appellate proceedings. In Mumbai also, the Mumbai Tribunal passed the first hearing in somewhere in April 2020. SOPs guidelines are expected shortly. Infrastructure, again the same thing, adequate internet bandwidth and hardware, strong connectivity, inform the mode of connecting, that is computer, mobile, tablet, how are you going to attend the hearing. Etiquettes, again as I said, you need to be properly dressed, you cannot be in shorts and t-shirt to attend the hearing. Court decorum has to be followed, and sitting arrangement etc. has to be the same. Blazers etc. will have to be followed even in virtual hearings. So as I said, law remains the same, it is just the manner of approaching the practical things changes, the procedure changes, just that from physical we are going to the digital mode. So I conclude on this session with the key takeaways, that is proactive preparedness, before we go on to the question and answers. So we need to be proactively prepared for the hearings and the submissions, start preparing in advance, enhance transparency and accountability with audit trails, inter-department data exchange, need for robust, concise and comprehensive submissions, reduced arbitrariness aimed at gaining taxpayers' trust, because no human intervention in selection of case, so therefore there is no arbitrariness etc. Adherence to the code of conduct for the virtual court hearings. So this is something, these are the key takeaways for the faceless assessment and the faceless appellate things. This is just the glossary of the terms which I used in the presentation. I'll be circulating this presentation. FAS, NEAC, DAO, AU, TU, all these abbreviations which are used. I have just given the full form here for ready reference. Yeah, so if we have any questions, we can take up. I can see a few questions in the chat box. First question from Zoeb Patanwala is, what's the criteria for selection of scrutiny? So the criteria remains the same, which was there earlier. It is just that the selection was manually in some cases earlier. Now it will be by data analytics.
Yes.
and everything will be digital without human intervention and by artificial intelligence. Next question is by Junaid Godiwala. Can RJAO, irrespective of the final order passed by the review unit of the faceless assessment team, make changes to the assessment order and dismiss additions on his own account? No. RGO has no jurisdictions for passing assessment order. He cannot do anything. The jurisdictional officer just has to act on the demand. He just has to act on the rectification, etc. He cannot do anything with the assessment order. The assessment order responsibility lies with the NEAC and REAC only. If the submission exceeds 50 MB, then in the second submission, should the reference be drawn to the previous submission? Yes, we can do that. Now, what is the next question is how can we be assured that the submission will go to the same officer in the AU? Let me make it clear that even if the AU changes, even if the officer changes, he will have access to all your submissions. So he cannot, rely only on one of your submissions while passing the order. He will have to rely on all the submissions while passing the order. So it doesn't matter even if the AU changes, he will take cognizance of all the submissions made. And as I said, there will be audit trail. So even if the first officer changes
Thank
to
you,
second
thank you.
officer, or the file is moved from first to second, the first officer
Okay,
will
bye.
have made the notings, etc. So therefore, doesn't matter whether AU changes or it is the same AU. The submissions will be available to both the AUs. I hope that answers your question, Salman Sakarwala.
Any participants have any more queries can unmute themselves and ask Mr. Vyomesh.
Yes, please.
I guess you have covered all the FAQs and queries in quite in detail. So right now, no one has any further queries immediately. And thanks a lot for the. I think so. One sec. So what about the submission in excess of 50? There's a question from Mr. Salman Sakarwala, which is more technical in nature.
Yeah.
So
So
how do we submit?
we have already raised with the department that in many cases the submissions will go beyond 50 MB. So what we understand is that they are currently working on upgrading their infrastructure to increase this limit of 50 MB to 100 MB and be even beyond. So currently, I think they should come up with some better infrastructure maybe in 10-15 days time, and will be eligible to submit make submissions in more than 50 MB. So they will come out with solution on this regard, not an issue, because this is their problem, not our problem. So they need to work on this, and they are already working on it. Yeah.
I think that's all the queries we have for the time being. So I'll request CA Sakina Imani to give a formal vote of thanks to CA Vomesh Pathak. Sakina, can you?
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful presentation. The presentation was really visually also pleasing, and it was self-explanatory, though your inputs to it were more than important. And I think we really need to be now proactive, as you said, and get prepared for all these kind of new faceless assessment process which we will be now facing. And to be honest, when you were doing the lecture, I understood that there are so many areas on which we really need to work on. So I hope all the participants will now take your presentation and your advices to their heart and start preparing for the thing. Thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sakina, and thank you once again to all the participants, and especially to Mr. Vomesh Pathak to spare the time on the Saturday and guide us through the new updates and the new faceless assessment scheme. And hope to see you again on some other relevant topics related to faceless assessment. It's just the beginning, so it's a long way to go for all of us. So we hope we will meet again on the same topic, sir,
Sure.
very soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone. Thanks, Mr. Umesh. Bye. We'll end the meeting. Yeah.